Okay. Here's a second excerpt from Voyagers that the Guardians had asked me to put into the Session 1 program. Excerpt 2, Salvaging the Sacred. Recap. In the ideological evolutionary stages that have been characteristic to Earth's unsustainable mortal life civilization, the FE infinitum is often rudimentarily conceptualized and labeled as the following. So this is just a recap. This part down here is the recap from the FE, whatever number FE page we read before. But this is what they wanted to bring back to our attention. I remember reading it before. Or as competing polarized warrior gods, right? Back to the warrior gods concept here. It's like, however, the living eternal FE nature is capable of expressing through any of these more limited forms and ideas. So this is going back to what we had read before about the various terms that are used to attempt to explain FE and how many of those terms do not serve FE well and do not carry the actual true nature of the FE consciousness. So here is an excerpt that relates to that. And this one is from Voyagers again, Volume 2, Secrets of Amente, 2001-2002, page 422 to 425. This is page 1 of 2 of this excerpt. And the whole excerpt's here. This one's called Return to Innocence, Salvaging the Sacred, Healing World Religions. In the times before the 208,216 BC fall of Brunaway, when the angelic human races of Earth suffered the loss of D12 access, all life experience was a living prayer of joyful spiritual and material celebration. In those times, religion was not a control dogma used to rob personal power and dignity from people. In those times, people did not die. They consciously chose to ascend out of density via the universal Stargate system. Science and spirituality were fully understood as part of the same primal creation mechanics that allowed for the experience of manifest expression and simultaneous experience of at-one-ment with the true loving God source. Back then, we all knew ourselves, each other, the earth, and all things as blessed expressions of the one God, and we honored all things accordingly. In those ancient of days, the days of innocence, there were 12 angelic human tribes appointed as the co-guardians of Earth's planetary Templar complex. Each tribe was entrusted with one of 12 Emerald Covenant CDD plates, Cloister Door Tour plates. Each CDD plate held 1/12 of the Founder's Emerald Covenant teachings on the nature and mechanics of reality, consciousness, and manifestation. From the 12 CDD plates, protected by the 12 angelic human tribes, arose the first earthly verbal and written translations of the Founder's sacred teachings. These text translations were the original holy books of the 12 genuine components of what is termed religion. The teachings of all genuine holy books complemented each other, honored the same eternal loving one God source that has infinite names and none. All of the ancient holy books that still divide our races today originally emerged from these 12 bodies of once sacred Emerald Covenant teachings. In the chaos of fallen angelic infiltration of Atlantis and the progressive advancement of the antichristic phantom matrix paradigm on Earth that has occurred since the Atlantean times, our sacred religions have been raped and all but extinguished. False teachings have been woven between the lines of truth, and the greatest bodies of truth have been removed entirely. For over 11,000 years, human and Illuminati hybrid races denied the truth of their history, race identity, memory, and immediate relationship to the God Force, have been destroying each other and the Earth on behalf of intruder ET, fallen angelic religious deception. It is now up to each of us to decide whether or not we love the living, loving, eternal God presence and the promise of attainable heaven that true God Spirit stands for. The living God presence does not reside in any book. It resides within each and every person, place, or thing. True holy books teach us of the eternal truths of spirit and science, through which we can most rapidly and easily awaken the God presence within. Some people will choose to love more than the living. I gotta go back. Sorry, it's just hard to read on this angle. Some people will choose to love more than the living, loving God. The twisted rantings, they'll love more than the living, loving God. The twisted rantings and ravings of vengeful, harsh, and judgmental intruder ET false gods, because this provides them with false security and a socially acceptable frame of reference. False security and fitting in with the local clan are rather pathetic rewards for the payment of imprisoning one's soul. The sacred teachings of the 12 tribe nations are presently drowning in a sea of fallen angelic lies, aka known as false news, right, these days. The sacred teachings of the 12 tribe nations are presently drowning in a sea of fallen angelic lies. It is up to us to save them. Each contemporary religion holds partial truths and partial lies. It is up to us to find the living God spirit within, through which we can salvage the sacred within each and every creed, and dispose of the garbage that has taught us to judge and kill each other, to martyr ourselves, and to unknowingly support fallen angelic agendas. If we desire to find the promised heaven on earth, we must first find it within ourselves, which we cannot do while we continue to crucify ourselves in the name of external warlords and wrath-filled false gods. In the salvaging of our sacred and discarding of the deception within our world religious creeds, we can all rediscover God, ourselves, and each other. And in that discovery, we can begin the journey of our collective return to innocence. Next page, please. Remember, these were written back in 2000, so these are excerpts from 2000. They've been published for quite a long time. I'm surprised nobody's come after me yet, actually. Down, yeah. I should tell you up, because, yeah, but for me it's down. Alrighty, thank you. Excerpt 2 is continued, so it's the same excerpt. It's just the next part of it. Okay. Next part. God is real. It is an omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient force and source of consciousness within which we all reside, even the bad guys, and of which we are all composed. This was written before we got into the levels of information pertaining to Effie and all of that. This was way before the Guardians had introduced us to those levels of structure in the cosmoverse. All right. Okay. The true God is beyond form manifestation, and no being can ever be separate from the true God, because all form manifestation takes place within the source. Even beings of the phantom matrix are part of the wholeness of God, but they represent the parts of God's consciousness that have forgotten their divine identity and have no memory of the wholeness of which they are a part. Phantom matrix beings compete for power with others, as they neither acknowledge nor comprehend the endless supply of living power, energy, and love that eternally circulates between source and all living things manifest. We are all directly connected to the real God source, or Effie, in every moment. We can learn the once common knowledge secrets of allowing the living, loving God presence to progressively embody within us. We do not have to subjugate ourselves to self-appointed false god, fallen angelics, who depend upon taking our energy and power to sustain their own finite supply. Once we overcome the hurdle of external false God worship and replace it with internal living God worthship, having worth of the real living God, not worship, bow down, and that kind of thing, we will no longer be overly impressed by or mentally and emotionally gullible toward the space brother savior fallen angelic agenda. Ascension is real, but it is not achieved by allowing yourself to be sucked into the phantom matrix due to dogmatic adherence to fallen angelic, distorted, and ancient texts. The Emerald Covenant founders races have always taught the original freedom teachings of our loving source in inalienable spirituality, the realities of a loving God that lives within us all. The founders also teach the sacred science realities of the Maharata, for which the real Christ story originally stood, and which the real man Christ, Jeshua Melchizedek, and many others of all religions once passionately taught. Long ago, before our planet was hijacked by the spiritually and genetically twisted, mentally disturbed, power-hungry, fallen angelic souls of the Phantom Matrix, the Emerald Covenant teachings were humanity's heritage and common knowledge. The Emerald Covenant teachings were once the core, heart, and soul of every religion. These teachings belong to the Christian, the Muslim, the Jew, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the tribal shaman, to everyone. This was true in the days before the falcon and the phoenix and the serpent, the dragon and the dove, APIN systems, Atlantean Pylon Implant Network systems that are grid implants in our planetary grids, laid their territorial claim on Earth and attempted to possess humanity's soul. These were the ancient of days, the days of innocence, when angelic humans lived in peace and joyful union with all other kingdoms in God's house of many mansions, that is our 15-dimensional time matrix system, and many others of its kind. These were the days before the dereliction of Atlantis. Right now, in the bridge zone inner Earth time continuum that represents humanity's victorious future, back in 2000 it did, the days of innocence are reborn. So they're using they would like to use this excerpt not only for what it is saying about the larger picture of saving our sacred religions. When I highlight something like this in the blue, that means they've taken it and moved, like expanded upon it. So they're using this to give an update on they will use this soon to give an update on the Bridge Zone project and what happened with that and what it was, actually, in a nutshell. Okay. So right now, it was the Bridge Zone project that what represented humanity's victorious future. Now it's the Crystal Bridge Zone project that represents our victorious future. And that's when the days of innocence will be reborn. Today we are faced with a truly profound choice. And they were saying this back in 2000, and they're saying it to us again. Do we subjugate and sacrifice our living inner Christos upon the altar of wrathful gods from ancient books, or do we reach within and Godward to find the living presence of Source that has always been there? These are the most decisive of times, for in the contemporary drama, we will witness the long foretold battle of the angels. The fallen angels and the living angels will, in these very times, meet, and each individual will face the choice of deciding which type of angel to be. Now, this part of this note, I'm not going to read because this is expanded on the next page and not microtype, not quite as micro anyway. So this is only an excerpt from the page after this. But this I will read you down here. One of the update notes pertaining to this excerpt from Voyagers, it said, January 2019, update note. The advanced frequencies, records, and knowledge of the Cumea Alhambra crystal discs. Remember we talked in the beginning of this, we talked about the Cloisterdora Tura plates, the CDD plates. So they're telling us here how this was upgraded. The information was, went further than just the CDD plates. So the advanced frequencies, records, and knowledge of the Cumea Alhambra crystal discs, which are the Cosmoversal crystal radiation libraries of the Alhambra Majestuary Councils of Cosminus, and also reference to the books of Cumea Alhambra, which were introduced in the Freedom Teachings in August of 2007 through 2009, and also in the Tantriora Teachings. Okay, these came online, these crystal discs libraries came online with its Templar and the Emerald Covenant CDD plates when the Covenant of Alhambra engaged and the Crystal River failsafe host triggered at Gridwhack, August 1 through 8 of 2011, Mug 51. So that's when the Cumea Alhambra crystal discs and their much larger bodies of information of our history and mechanics and all of that came online with the CDD plate. So they're both linked together, and that's why they can cross-reference as well. But the CDD plates have a much smaller amount and a smaller history period and a more localized one for our time matrix, where the Cumea Alhambra crystal disc libraries extend all the way up to the FE consciousness field level, the Urlake Conservatory level. So it's just a much, much larger database than what the CDD plates held. But they're still online as well.